Good morning, Celebration Spiritual Center, and happy Sunday. Let us stand as we prepare and begin our service in prayer this morning. Our prayer champion, Reverend Shauna, will lead us in prayer.
Good morning, beautiful people. Good morning. I breathe in hope and I breathe out love. I breathe in compassion and I breathe out freedom. I recognize the truth of what this thing I call God is. God is infinite supply. It is all love and compassion. It is all peace and harmony. It removes all obstacles. It is creator, sustainer, and transformer. It is everywhere present. It is all-knowing and all-knowledge. It is beyond word and thoughts. There is only God and only good. It is within every creature on this planet. It is within us, above us, around us, and under us. It breathes us, it pumps our blood, it causes us to exist in this form at this time. Everything we are and have and do and create and achieve is the God in us. I know that God works through me. I am divine with unlimited love, wisdom, and power. I go deeper and experience the divine order in all situations. And as God works through me, it works through each one of you, my brothers and sisters. You are imbued with divinity, with unlimited power, with unlimited wisdom, and with unlimited love. I am grateful and thankful that there are way showers who embody God, who remind us and point us to the highest good, who demonstrate that in whatever circumstances we are free. No judgments, no laws, no opinions can touch the perfect, whole, and complete soul that is the one with the one. Today I declare that I am open to that divine realization that God already is, that I already am, that peace is already here, that love is already here, that there is nothing new to create but to realize that God is, and that you and I are manifestations of this divine consciousness of oneness, of wholeness, of completeness, of perfection. As you leave today, we all remember that we are the Christ. We are the light. We are invincible. Yes. We are able to do all things because all things are possible. Yes. Therefore, I release this word into that divine law that already knows what to do and how to do it, and declare that it is already done. So it is with total joy, acceptance, and expectation that we now say amen, amen. Ashe, Ashe. And so it is.
So we celebrate being right here, right now, in the present moment. The past is gone, the future is yet to come, and we are here now. Yes, yes. We made it. It doesn't matter what happened on the week. We're here now.
I can feel my feet on the ground.
I'm in the present moment now.
I'm in the present moment.
What a joyful place I found.
What a joyful place I found.
Here in the present moment now.
Present moment.
I am
here now.
More love and joy. Celebrate with me here and now. We're in the present moment now. Hey, we are. Let's take a breath. We sing, I breathe in, I breathe out. I'm in the present moment now. Bringing your attention to your breath is how you get back to the present, easily and effortlessly. And from your consciousness of the present, then you can affirm, from sleep was so small. Here in the present, all my driving small. Here in the present, problems seem so small. Oh, here in the present, all my times fall. I am here.
Good morning, Celebration Spiritual Center.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Great.
How are you feeling?
Great.
How are you being?
Great.
All right. My work here is done. Well, I'm Pastor Yolanda on behalf of myself and Pastor Greg. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Celebration Spiritual Center, where we celebrate, that word is intentional, the magnificence of God in you, as you, all around you. Whatever you call this God, we call it love. It's sitting right where you are sitting. It is breathing right where you're breathing. It is not some man in the sky that you got to bow down to. It is unconditional love. It is an energy. It is a life force. It is the life force. And guess what it does? It sees you as it created you. It never changes its mind about you. It never goes through the wobble that you experience. It keeps its steady gaze, its soft gaze, its drishti, its power on you. Because it knows your perfection. It doesn't keep a list of mistakes. Why would unconditional love create you perfect, whole, and complete, see you that way, and then keep a list of things that was wrong with you? If we use our brain in this way, we would never be in superstition and fear again. If we realized if something created us some kind of way that had all power, it could never allow us to be changed. Not in its perception of us. So guess what it's up to us to do? Change our minds about ourselves. Align our vision with this vision. Allow unconditional love to flow through us and be us and all around us. If you're unfamiliar with the kind of God that loves you this way, and how we celebrate, we see your beauty and we never lose our focus on it. And we see everything as spiritual, including these cell phones, these smart devices that we are attached to. What we want you to do is spiritualize your cell phone. What does that mean, Pastor Yolanda? That means put your cell phone on vibrate. But if something moves you or touches you, put it out there on Facebook and Twitter. You never know how you're going to impact another life. So put it out there. And if you received one of the blue connection cards on your way in, please turn it over, fill it out, drop it in with your offering, and we'll put you on our mailing list. In 2 months, we'll be in year 7. 7 years of a constant message of telling you your perfection, your wholeness, your beauty, of celebrating you as you were created. And if you want to know more of what's happening this year, make sure you're on our mailing list. Fill it out, drop it in. And finally, when we were in the process of creating more than 7 years ago, we said we wanted to create a place that felt so much like home that you would never be a visitor. You would be family. First time you come, you're a guest, of course. First time in our home and in our heart. But when you come back, you're family. So if we have any first-time guests, please stand briefly. Thank you for being here. And remember, first time you come to CSC, you're a what?
Yes.
And when you come back, you're what?
Family.
Let's all stand and greet each other like family.
Yes. Well, this weekend is the time that has been set aside to honor the life, the legacy, the memory of a great American leader, a great American prophet, great American minister, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And so we're going to begin musically today by invoking the power of the civil rights movement with a song that was sung day in and day out. Woke up this morning with my mind. The movement said stayed on freedom. We're going to start with stayed on spirit. And we recognize the power of this song, and we also recognize as we are understanding the law and working with the law, we talked about the law of thinking last week, that we have to constantly keep our mind, right? Our thought must be disciplined, it must be orderly, it must be organized, it must be constructive. We must keep our mind stayed on spirit. Feel free to join in as you so desire. Can we put our hands together? I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on spirit.
Stayed on spirit.
Oh, I woke up this
Morning with my mind.
stayed on spirit.
Stayed on spirit.
Oh, I
This morning with my mind.
stayed on spirit.
Stayed on spirit.
Hallelujah.
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 Hallelujah. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on spirit.
Stayed on spirit.
Ooh,
Morning with my mind.
stayed on spirit.
Stayed on spirit.
Oh,
Morning with my mind.
stayed on spirit.
Stayed on spirit.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Oh, I'm walking and talking with my mind stayed on spirit.
Stayed on spirit.
Everywhere I go and everywhere I be,
Talking with my mind.
I'm walking and talking with my mind.
Stayed on spirit.
Oh,
Talking with my mind.
stayed on spirit.
Stayed on spirit.
Hallelujah. Oh, I'm singing and praying with my mind. Stayed Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Oh, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. This is the song our ancestors sang day after day. Even when they didn't see freedom, they put their mind on freedom. I just stayed on freedom. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. This is a song to celebrate. This is a word that we celebrate. It ain't no harm.
Good morning, Celebration. My name is Gabby, and I am so happy to see you guys today. One thing that you will learn about CSC is that our vision, mission, and purpose guide everything that we do. The vision. Celebration Spiritual Center is a God experience that turns on the heart, mind, and soul of the world. A God experience is the realization of oneness that transcends material sense. Our mission and purpose is to awaken the world to the presence of God within and all around us. Celebrate this truth as one family, embody unconditional love, equip humanity to live our greatest lives, and serve all creation. The centering thought for this month's meditation is, I am one with God. And the song for the month is, I am remembering who I am. We continue the January message series, You Better Work, Truth Principles for Successful Living. Pastor Greg's topic today is, Occupy Your House of Plenty. And now it's time for your CSC news and updates. Come get clarity about what's going on in your life. Pastor Greg and Pastor Yolanda are here to support you in applying what you learn at CSC to your daily life experiences. Join us today at 1 p.m. for the God Talk. No question is off limits. Our month of powerful prayer continues. Join PGPY and the Prayer Champions Monday through Friday for the Momentum Prayer Call at 7 a.m. Call details can be found at the host table on our website and social media. Start your morning in the right vibration and let that momentum carry you through the day. If you can't join live, and trust me guys, you're gonna want to, listen to the playback anytime. Save your seat.
The next round of 4T Prosperity Program begins Thursday, February 6, 2020 at 7 p.m. This is a 12-week church-facilitated spiritual program dedicated to the idea of living an abundant life. Free of the feeling of fear and insecurity, free of thoughts of lack and limitation, centered in the abundance of God. The cost is $99 for new students and $50 for returning students. So go to www.celebration.sc.org/register and register today. Bring your skills and talents to Team Celebrate. We're holding Team Celebrate training on Sunday, February 9th at 1 p.m. following the weekend service. If you're interested in attending, go to www.celebrationsc.org/register and click the Team Celebrate icon. Who you are is who we need. Text to give. It's fast, it's easy, and it's secure. Text your dollar amount to 347-744-9500. Then follow the prompts. Minimum donation is $10. Again, the number is 347-744-9500. Try it out today. Now, just a few short housekeeping reminders. Food and drink is not allowed in the sanctuary except for water. However, we do ask that you keep your beverage covered. Also, no audio or video recording is permitted during service. Thank you again for celebrating with us, and we will see you guys next week.
Well, thank you, Gabby. We have come to the time in our service that we dedicate to the experience of our oneness with this thing we call God. A Course in Miracles is based around the idea that there's two ways of being, there's two ways of thinking, there's two ways of living. There's the way of fear, and there's a way of love. And love is synonymous with unified, with the divine. Because when you think about it, when you're in fear, you're really separate from this thing we call God. Not because from its perspective, it's true, but because in your mind, you believe it's so. So we come this month to remembering that we're never separate from the divine, that we are one with God. One with this power, this peace, this prosperity, this ease, this knowingness, this infinite intelligence, whatever those attributes that you would attribute to this thing, those things are within you. And when we are in worry, fear, and doubt, we don't see or notice or experience that knowingness. But in meditation, we can. As I like to say, you can learn and memorize every word from A Course in Miracles or any sacred text. But if you're not experiencing those in your life, activated in you, it's just information. So we dedicate each service to the experience of going within, connecting to this truth that is within you, this truth that never leaves, but feels like it does. We use the breath to connect, because if you can breathe, you can meditate. So no one is unknowledgeable about meditation. They just haven't practiced. So let's do that right now. Go ahead and bring your feet to the floor. And if you're holding anything on your lap, go ahead and release it now. And allow your back to rest nice and easy against the chair. Close your eyes, as if giving yourself permission to relax even more. And just begin to notice the breath from the inside. Because if the breath is moving, the energy is moving. If the breath is there, the love is there. And since the breath is there, God is there. Just notice it. And in the noticing, remember, I am one with this God that I speak of. As the breath belongs to me, God belongs to me. And with each breath, we begin to relax this body, this temple a little more. Notice the body being held by the chair beneath you, being supported by the floor, being held up by a building, connected to the earth, to the core of the earth and beyond. You can relax into this foundation. Now bring your focus to those feet beneath you, the things that carry you to and fro, that can relax now because they are connected. Relax the feet. As the energy gathers underneath the feet that we have summoned from the core of the earth and beyond, we allow it to travel up our calves and our shins. We relax the calves and the shins. Warm healing energy flows across the knees. We relax the knees. Energy travels across the thighs now, signaling every muscle to relax and surrender that weight to the chair, to the floor, to the building, to the earth, to the core. And from this surrendered place, energy travels up the spine now, activating our chakra system, the subtle body, the truth of you. In your mind, see energy flowing up the spine, all the way out the crown of your head. And this power is collected above us all. And now it begins to flow down through the crown, across the third eye, down the throat, across the shoulders, signaling their relaxation, and down the arm, out the fingertips. And if you choose, you can turn the palms up to receive more, or turn the palms down to ground. Either way, the energy cannot be stopped. It just continually flows. In and out like the breath. As this powerfully connected channel, let's all begin to move the breath in a conscious way. Bring your focus to the right side of the body. Inhale. Exhale down the right. Inhale up. Exhale down. Inhale up. Exhale down. Few more rounds on your own. Inhaling up the right and exhaling down the left. Inhaling up and exhaling down. It's as if you're being held by the universe now, connected to it as you are to your breath. One more round. Beautiful. Now bring that energy full center. Inhale through your low belly. Hold it there. Open the mouth and sigh it out. Inhale up through the rib cage now. Activating the front and the sides and the back of your body. Hold it there. Open the mouth and sigh it out. Full breath in and all the way up through the heart. Hold it there. Open the mouth and sigh. Beautiful. This time, full breath all the way in and up through the heart. Each heart connected to the other. And release. Inhaling more connection. Open the mouth and make room for more connection. Inhale. Hold it there. This time, close the lips. Exhale through the nose. This is how we will breathe together. In and out through the nose. Each round of breath taking us more into the center. Each round of breath reminding us that we are one with God. Never separate, always secure. And as we sing these words, you just watch the breath and be one with the sound and the energy that we've created, remembering that you are one with the divine. Nice and easy. You just relax in the knowingness that whenever the mind flows out, bring it back to the oneness with the divine. For you are one with God. Let every voice, but the voice of love, be still in you now. With our eyes still closed, we take a picture on the inside and remember the quiet we gave ourselves. We remember that if the mind, and when the mind races, we come back to this moment of connection, of knowing, of remembering. Taking a point in front of you on the floor. Nice gentle gaze. Inhale, raise the chin, raise the gaze. Namaste. Remember
we are honoring Dr. King, this song is rooted in, I think, an important idea, because so often there are a lot of things that people do on this weekend, and I have a couple opinions about them. But one of the things that I find that's interesting is so often this is a time where people are encouraged to, volunteer and go out and do something nice. I don't necessarily think that that's how we really honor the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. When we consider his writings, his teaching, when we consider that he was not only working to dismantle racial oppression and Jim Crow as it began, but as he evolved, we recognize that he began to do the work of dismantling economic injustice, that he was doing some very powerful things. And so just going out handing out dinners, to me, is not necessarily a way that we really honor and commemorate the legacy and the teaching. But one of the things I think that's interesting, if we look at Dr. Martin Luther King, we recognize that he did what was his to do. He started very young at about 23, and he never stopped. He never stopped. He did what was his to do. There were others that were doing what was theirs to do. And so one of the things that's really most important, I believe, is for us to find what it truly is for us to do. Because each and every one of us have the capability and possibility to impact the entire planet in the same way that he did. Right? We make him some great exception. But the truth is, the same power that flowed in through and as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is the same power that flows in through and as you. The same power that flowed in through and as our elder brother Jesus is the same power that flows in through and as you. So this song is a reminder of that it's wonderful to honor and celebrate any great leader, teacher that impacted the world and influences us and help to push humanity forward, evolve us in a specific and necessary way. But now you're here. And so now it's up to each and every one of us to support humanity in evolving in a way that's beneficial to the planet. The same power lives in you. He walked on water. Calmed the sea. He fed the thousands. Preached liberty. He healed the sick. He made men see. He said that we would do greater than he. And the same power lives in you. Everything he did, you can do. There's a miracle worker in you. Yes, the same power lives in you. Water to wine, sight to the blind, fed the multitude. You are the Christ. You are the light. It lives in you. My sister, my brother, it lives in you. He was a teacher. A man of peace. He marched in Selma and Montgomery. He was a teacher. He was a king. He said that we would do greater than he. And the same power lives in you. Everything he did, you can do. There's a miracle working in you. The same power lives in you. Water to wine, sight to the blind, fed the multitude. You are the Christ. You are the light. It lives in you. My brother, my sister, is in you. Can we sing it again? The same power lives in you. Everything he did, you can do. There's a miracle forever. Yes, the same power lives. Water to water, sight to sight, and the multitude. You are the light. It lives in you. Yes, each and every one of you is in you. So now the question becomes, what is mine to do? How am I going to impact my world? How am I going to impact my sphere of influence? Because I recognize that the same power that enabled MLK to be great, that enabled Gandhi to be great, that enabled Rosa Parks to be great, it lives in me. So I am firm and decree, I am the Christ. I am the light. I am invincible. I am invincible. I am the Christ. I am the light. And because of that, all things are possible. All things are possible. Oh, I am the Christ. I am the light. I am invincible. I am invincible. I am the Christ. I am the light. All things are possible. All things are possible. I am the Christ. I am the light. I am invincible. I am all things are possible. All things are possible. I am the Christ. I am the all things are possible. Together we put our hands on our heart. I am the Christ. I am the light. I am invincible. I am invincible. I am the Christ. I am the Christ. I am the light. I am the light. All things are possible. All things are the miracle worker in you knows. It knows. It knows. There is something within you that knows nothing can hurt or harm you in truth. Yeah. Oh, how things are possible. I am invincible. Nothing can hurt or harm you. You are an eternal being. All things are possible. All things are possible. I am the Christ. I am the light. I am invincible. I am invincible. Oh, I am the Christ. I am. I am in you. My sister, my brother, it lives in all of you. That is the truth of our life. It remains forever the truth of our life. So it is. So it is. Yes, yes. The power that Martin Luther King Jr. used, it is our opportunity to make use of that same power, to let it flow through us as elegantly and as eloquently as it flowed through him. That is our opportunity as we celebrate one being who operated in this truth, in this knowing. Thank you, Soul 21. Celebration Day. Yes, sir. Well, good morning again, everybody. Happy Sunday. It's so good to be here with y'all. I love hanging out with you all on Sundays. Hello to everyone that's streaming online, East Coast, West Coast, all around the world. It's good to be here with each and every one of you. So we are in this 3-part series, You Better Work. Truth Principles for Successful Living. We started in week 1 with The Fault Is Not in Our Stars. I'm looking at this underlying idea of answering the question, what is the law? If we're going to work with it, we got to understand what it is. And as we understand what it is, we recognize that we cannot live in the place of victimhood. In order to work with the law and understand and make use of the law, this idea that anything is outside of us doing something to us must be discarded. So the fault is not in our stars. It's not something, some fate out there, but it is in our own thought process patterns and beliefs and thought system. So then in week 2, we began by looking at the law of thinking. My thinking makes it so. And we looked at how we must think in order to affect change in our lives. Our thinking must be disciplined. It must be orderly and organized. It must be constructive. Yes, yes? Yes. So this week we look at the law of supply. And in the text, Working with the Law, if you don't have it yet, Working with the Law by Raymond Hollowell. All the links are online. You can go to Instagram or Facebook, Twitter, find the link to purchase the book, but you want to get this and read and study as we're moving through this series. So in the chapter on the law of supply, we read this. Here is the key to the law as Jesus gave it. What things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them. We affirm repeatedly that God is our supply, and if we would think a moment and trace our supply back to its source, we would agree that the statement is true. The difficulty with some is that they can more easily look at creature for the source of their substance than to creator. As we are able to believe in the abundance of good, we shall see it and enjoy it. Thus, at the outset, the question is, which comes first, seeing or believing? As we study the facts, we shall learn that the latter comes first, and the law is founded on our belief, which in turn determines our sight. So this law of supply, and I talked about this in week 1, we have this idea of this text, we have like 11 laws. The other texts you'll read, there's 7 laws, there's 13 laws, there's 3 laws, there's 21 laws, right? And in truth, there's an infinite number of laws, but these are ways to describe it. We could also call this law of supply. We could call it the law of substance. We could call it the law of energy, or simply the law of abundance. So as we're digging into the law of supply, I want to look at this first idea that Hallowell talks about. He said, when he says, we affirm repeatedly that God is our supply, and if we would think a moment and trace our supply back to its source, we would agree that the statement is true. So let's look at this idea of God as our supply. Now, as we also understand from week 1, when we're talking about God, we're talking about law. And so actually the word God is not used as much in the text once he sets that foundation. So we're really saying law is our supply. But what is the nature of God? What is the nature of law? So we got to go back to what I say is New Thought 101. We got to go back to Dr. H. Emily Cady. We got to go back to that second lesson, the statement of being, who and what is God? And in that lesson, we talk about it so often. You can go back to the Practical Spirituality series or the Miseducation of a Metaphysician series to dig more into this. But briefly, when we look at the nature of who and what is God, or who and what is law, we read this, that law is spirit. What that means is that it's formless and it's beyond form. It's not a person, place, or thing. Law is love. Law is wisdom and intelligence. It is all power, all knowledge. It is omnipresence. What that means is that it's everywhere at all times, and it is everything, which means that it neither comes and it neither goes. That's what omnipresence means. And then we finally understand that it is good, not good-natured, right? Not that we're describing it, that's how it shows up in the world. It literally is good itself. So we read then in the text where H. Emily Cady says, God is not a being or a person having life, intelligence, love, power. God is that invisible, intangible, but very real something we call life. God is perfect love and infinite power. God is the total of these, the total of all good, whether manifested or unexpressed. God then is the substance or the real thing standing under every visible form of life, love, intelligence, or power. So when we say that law is our supply, when we say that God is our supply, what we're saying then is that spirit is my supply. There is something that is formless and beyond form that can become any form. That's my supply. When we say that God is our supply, when we say that love is our supply, or law is our supply, we're saying that love is our supply. This thing that expresses in ways that we call love, not emotion, the emotion love, but the thing that signifies union and connection. Wisdom and intelligence is my supply. All power, all the power there is to be, do, or have anything is my supply. All knowledge is my supply. Omnipresence is my supply, which means, as we said, what is omnipresence? That means my supply neither comes and it neither goes. Good is my supply. And so then when we understand what we're talking about, when we say the law is our supply, and understand we break it out into these other words and look at it from different angles, is this what we're experiencing in our relationships? Omnipresence is my supply. Good is this what we're experiencing in our careers? Is this what we're experiencing in our businesses? Is this what we're experiencing in our finances? Why isn't this how we experience supply? If this is the truth, that God is our supply, and even reasonable folks can look back, as Hallowell says, and trace our supply back to its source, and we would agree that ultimately there's something in back of, behind, and underneath all things that I choose to call God, that I choose to call law, that I choose to call source, and ultimately that is my supply. That makes sense, but when I look at my life, it don't make sense. When I look at my relationships, careers, business, or my finances, it doesn't seem to be true. So as we look deeper into the text, Hallowell writes this. He says, the difficulty with some is that they can more easily look to creature for the source of their substance than to creator. You heard me say that earlier, right? So repeat after me. Seeing is not believing.
Seeing is not believing.
One more time. Seeing is not believing.
Seeing is not believing.
Believing is seeing.
Believing is seeing.
Believing is seeing.
Believing is seeing.
I heard Steve Harvey say it. He says it a lot. If you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. That's another way of understanding the law of supply. If you can see it in your mind, because believing is seeing. See, the truth is everything we see, taste, touch, smell, hear, out there, is simply an outpicturing of supply. It had to exist before it can exist. See, this is when we understand the law of supply. It must exist because it exists in the spirit realm, this formless realm, this divine substance. It must exist as substance before it can actually exist as a thing that we call real. But it goes a step further. Because if that's true, everything that we see, taste, touch, or smell out here, or here, out here, is an outpicturing of supply. Everything that we see, taste, touch, smell, and hear out here is an outpicturing of our belief and our understanding of supply.
Yes. Come on now.
Everything that we see, taste, touch, smell, hear out here is an outpicturing of our individualized belief and individual understanding of supply. You see, our beliefs act like a filter. And so what happens is it exists. There's more than enough, right? And it's able to flow in through and out our lives. But based on our understanding and based on our belief, we then filter the experience or the expression of supply. What I thought about, and I'm sure many of you use it, but you know those filters on Snapchat and Instagram are beautiful. They're amazing, right? The way they can just smooth out your skin. Look like you ain't got no issues. Look like you put on makeup even though you just woke up. But the truth is, behind that filter, you might have an acne issue. But the filter is smoothing everything out. So this is what's happening with our beliefs, right? There's something that's always true in back of and behind whatever our filter is. And so the opportunity is for us to make sure that whatever filter we're using, please slide to the abundance filter. Slide to the more than enough filter. Slide to the good and only good filter. Slide to the filter that affirms the life that you want to live. Yes, yes. But most of us are, sliding to the limitation filter and the not enough filter, right? And so again, we go back to what Hollowell writes. He says, here is the key to the law as Jesus gave it. What things soever ye desire when ye pray, believe that you receive them, and ye shall have them. So then we get into this other piece, which is interesting, because when we hear this idea, believe that ye have received them, and ye shall have them, what most of us do is wish, right? We imagine, and imagination is the first step. That's important, but that imagination should become such a visceral reality where to the point that we have no sense of separation between physically having it and mentally having it, because it's this one and the same, right? We have it. So he goes into this idea to help us to understand demand and supply. There's a phase of the law known as demand and supply, which is found in every department of life. Whenever humanity has needed a certain thing in life, an idea has been first given in mind. We are inspired to develop the idea and then to materialize it by converting a piece of mud or metal into a usable form, right? We understand that. You could have an idea of a piece of pottery, right? And you know what it looks like in your mind. And then out of that idea, which was the demand, then you take the infinite supply of mud or whatever that is, and you could make a piece of pottery, right? Or you could mold metal into something that's usable. But here's the thing. Where there is no demand, he writes, there will be no evidence of supply. The secret of the law lies in one's consciousness. A man and woman's life consists not in the abundance of the things she or he possesses, but in the consciousness of that which he or she has. These two pieces right here, it's everything to understanding this law of supply. Where there is no demand, there will be no evidence of supply. That's an important idea, because so often we think there's no supply because we are living in this idea of seeing is believing, right? That's how most of the world works, right? I can't go on this trip, or I can't even go visit the travel agent until I see the money in my bank account that I need to go on the vacation. I gotta see it before I can be it, right? But the truth is, where there is no demand, there will be no evidence of supply. So it's important that then we understand what that demand is about. And this is why when we pray and when we're thinking about praying affirmatively and we look deeper into that idea of whatsoever things you desire when we pray, believe that you receive them, or ask and it is given, we look deeper to the original meaning of the word that's translated into ask in the English, and the word is actually demand. It's actually declare. Now, the reason it's demand is not that you're fussing with the universe. I demand my good. Like, that's not what it is. But it's a recognition that if there is no demand, there won't be evidence of supply. So if you're not looking for it, it won't be there. Right? And so you cannot see what you're not looking for in consciousness. You cannot see what you don't or believe or accept to be true. So that's what your demanding is. What do I accept to be true? Do I accept that there is more than enough? Do I accept that I have access to more than enough? Do I accept that even if I don't see it, even if I don't see the way or I don't see the means or the outcome, I recognize that my supply is the means, the way, and the outcome. Right? And so we must look in consciousness for that thing, and then the evidence of supply shows up. The next piece he says, a man and woman's life consists not in the abundance of the things she or he possesses, but in the consciousness of that which she or he has. The consciousness of what she has. Have you ever asked yourself, what do I have? When there's a need, right? There's something that you want to do, be, or have. There's something that you need, whatever it may be. It may be a crisis, or it may just simply be a desire. We must come to an understanding of what we have. But what we have is not simply, and I want to speak to this on two levels, because there's the first level that I think is important as we're starting to tap into abundance. Many times we'll say, I don't have any money, because you don't have, say you have a $500 bill that you need to pay, and you have $200, right? So you can't pay that bill, and so you feel like, I don't have any money. Yes, you ever been there? Yeah. Right? And that's a lie. Right? Because you actually have money, but you're speaking ill on the money that you do have, the 200, because the 200 is not the 500. And so there's a spiritual idea and an understanding that we must get to the consciousness of first just blessing and honoring the 200. Right? That's even what's rooted in the idea when we look at the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000 men plus women and children. Right? We understand that what he took what seemed to be limited and not enough, and according to the story, he lifted it up, he gave thanks. He blessed what seemed like not enough, recognizing that he had something and that having can be multiplied. That's one level. But what we're talking about here, the second level of what do I have supply. See, when he says here, our life consists not in the abundance of things, but in the consciousness that we have. So it's beyond just what we possess. Yes, it's important that we bless and honor even the 200 when we need 500. That's very important. But beyond the 200, you must understand, where did that 200 come from? Because if you don't understand where the 200 come from, you'll never understand how you're going to get to the 500. When you understand that there's a consciousness behind the 200, when you understand that there's a supply, an infinite supply, an abundant supply, that thing that brought the 200 into your life, the 200 is just a representation of supply, just a representation of abundance. You put your mind on that having, then that 200 will turn into 300, 400, 500, 1,000, whatever is needed. That's the piece that we're talking about here, the consciousness of what we have. Not just looking at the awareness of what we physically possess, but the consciousness that we are tapped into, connected to forever, to infinite supply. I have supply. There's this beautiful spiritual idea, and I've talked about this, I'm sure, in the past, but it's the I am and the I have. It's the masculine and the feminine aspects of ourselves. I am is Aries, and I have is Taurus, right? And we understand that what's interesting from the perspective of the principle of mental gender, there always has to be a masculine aspect and a feminine aspect to create. And so often, we are aware of our I am, because we love I am affirmations. I am prosperous. I am worthy. I am beautiful. I am powerful. I am the Christ. I am the light. But we affirm those without a consciousness of our having. And so you cannot simply say I am prosperous, or I am wealthy, I am rich, I am wise, or all these things, if you are not understanding that. Why are your I ams true? Because you have. And that having is connected to something. One of the ways that this outpictures is one of my favorite ways to think about this, again, looking at the masculine and the feminine. If we go to ancient Kemet, if we go to Egypt, what we find is that the pharaohs, the throne that the pharaohs sat on was called the throne of Isis. And so the pharaoh represented the I am principle, and the throne of Isis represents the I have principle. Now, it would be very silly, right, if a pharaoh was trying to sit around talking about I am the pharaoh, trying to sit in the air, and doesn't have a throne. There would be nothing supporting him. There would be nothing lifting him up. There would be nothing that allows him to stand in this position and posture of who and what he is. There must be a throne of Isis. There must be this feminine that supports, that's the supply behind, that is the abundance behind, that is the authority behind, that is the royalty behind. this soul. So this is the idea when we talk about the consciousness of what we have. Do you recognize that there's a throne that you're sitting on, or are you out there pretending that there's a throne? See, this is the difference. There's a difference between sitting on air and sitting on a real throne. Yes, yes? And so this is why, unfortunately, many of our I am statements, while well-meaning and well-intentioned, are weak and powerless. Because it's not the consciousness of what we truly have. And here's the other part about this, why Hallowell is so clear here, that it's not the abundance of the things. This is not to speak ill of things. I like things. Things are wonderful. We're in the world of things. We must make use of things. I'm not saying that things are wrong. That's not it. But what I also recognize is that everything that I've ever possessed in my life that I loved and appreciated and cherished, it eventually got old, rusty, dusty, broke, and might have disintegrated, because the world of things is temporary by nature. I'm always fascinated when I look at cars for that reason. Cars that are wonderful and amazing. We can look at cars that seem old and rusty, and at one point, this was many of these cars were the ultimate status symbol. People were, even murdered or killed over something that seems silly now. Because everything in this world of things, by nature, by law, must diminish, must deteriorate, must break down, right? And so that's why if our life is consistent of the abundance of things, and so I am worthy because of these things. I am prosperous because of these things. I am happy because of these things. I am good because of these things. I know things work out for me because of these things. That will eventually get you all messed up. Because one day, in varying ways, you will find out that everything is temporary. Yes. But your consciousness of supply is eternal. Yes. And so I was reminded of something, because if we understand this consciousness of what we have, in the short, very short text, Money is God in Action, Raymond Charles Barker, he writes this, he says, the universe takes us at our valuation. And each of us needs to increase the consciousness of our own valuation. In this case, because we're talking about money, our valuation in money, as he writes about in this text. But it's important that supply exists. It always will. It always has. But the universe, the law, takes us at our own valuation. Whatever we believe to be true or possible about ourselves. So each and every one of us needs to increase the consciousness, same word, same idea, of our own valuation in money. Increase the consciousness of our valuation in love, the consciousness of our valuation in ideas, the consciousness of our valuation in understanding, the consciousness of our valuation in opportunity, in our family, and on our planet. Because this is how it works. So we must develop, we must expand, we must increase, we must widen, amplify, enlarge, strengthen our consciousness of supply, knowing what we have. Because again, the universe takes us at our valuation. I don't know how many people are fans of Shark Tank, right? Because that's many times a point of contention, right? Some people come in and they overvalue their company. They ain't even sold one product yet, and then they got a $10 million valuation. And they haven't proved anything about the nature of the company. Or it might be that it's just a very niche company, and so in truth, the market is not wide enough for that particular product to actually do what they would desire it to do. And so many times the sharks are like, you overvalued yourself. Sometimes even the sharks will say you undervalued. They see the potential and possibility. And in truth, that's what source life law is always really saying to us. Increase your valuation. No matter what that number currently is in your consciousness, no matter what that worthiness quotient is, no matter what that happiness quotient is for you, no matter what that time quotient is, there's an increase of valuation that must take place. And we do that by developing, expanding, increasing, widening, amplifying, enlarging, and strengthening our consciousness of supply. So that means we must occupy our house of plenty. See, I believe that within each and every one of us, there is a house of plenty. There is a space within us where we already know that supply is. There's a space within us that knows that abundance is, and we must go there in our mind. There's a place in your consciousness that knows abundance. There's a place in your consciousness within you that knows that lack is an impossibility. Go to your house of plenty. There's a house of plenty which knows that there is no limitation anywhere in nature. There's a house of plenty within you that knows that the good you demand is right here, right now. Hallowell puts it this way. He says, as abundance and supply are one, then to use the law, you must think supply. You must talk supply. And live supply with every thought. Keep your thoughts so occupied with ideas of plenty that any and all drone thoughts of lack or loss will be destroyed. I like that description, drone thoughts. Lack, limitation. Ain't no happiness, ain't no joy about it. There's no variety. There's nothing in it. Just, life ain't working for me. Oh no, I hate Mondays. But when you think supply, talk supply, live supply with every thought, and occupy your house of plenty, he says, any and all drone thoughts of lack and loss will be destroyed. Not just quieted, not just softened, not just becomes a little more reasonable so I can deal with it. You can destroy thoughts of lack and loss. Occupy your house of plenty. So I want to leave you with this one last thought, which is important. It's very important because if you notice, as I'm talking about supply, I talked about supply in a lot of different ways. Many times we think of the law of supply, the law of abundance, and we think it's a money conversation. And that's a limiting idea. Do not confuse form with supply. Please don't limit your supply to green paper and metal discs.
Well,
Please don't limit supply to that. Hallowell writes, if you concentrate upon money alone and use every means to gather it and hoard it, you are forcing the law to close out other good. Not that God is not willing to give you or bring you or express the good through you, but that's where you've narrowed your thinking. This is the only way that I can be abundant is with paper and metal discs. If you concentrate on a part and not the whole, you only get a small part. If you concentrate on the whole, you enjoy all its parts. If you love money, use the law solely to amass riches, you may gain riches, but you will also lose so much more that is good that your life will be quite empty and lonely. This is not in any ways to say that there's anything wrong with money. Money and money in abundance is an expression of supply. Love and love in abundance is an expression of supply. Joy and joy in abundance is an expression of supply. Time and time in abundance is an expression of supply. Peace and peace in abundance is an expression of supply. Happiness and happiness in abundance is an expression of supply. So please do not confuse cars with supply. Don't confuse sexy bodies with supply. Don't confuse education with supply. Don't confuse houses with supply. Don't confuse clothes with supply. Don't confuse your phone or your tablets or your computers with supply. Concentrate on the whole. Concentrate on supply. Think, talk. Concentrate. Occupy your house of plenty. When I think about that idea of occupying the house of plenty, I already mentioned Money is God in Action by Raymond Charles Barker. And at the end of that short text, he offers a spiritual mind treatment. And I read that treatment every day. And there's a line that I love that stuck out to me one morning, and I have it underlined. And I kind of just stop every time I get there. It's a very simple line. He says, I abide in prosperity. It's another way of thinking about occupying your house of plenty. Because when we look at the word abide, it's an interesting word as it's used here as a transitive verb. To abide means to remain stable or fixed in a state. So it's not just I hang out in prosperity. It's not just every now and then I go by Prosperity's house to see how they doing and how they mama doing. See, because this is what some of us do, right? This is how some of us do. We entertain these ideas here and there, and particularly when shit hits the fan and we got a problem. Then we go to Supply's house because we know supply exists. Again, there's something within us. We know supplies exist. So when it hits the fan, then we go see about them. They've been calling us, trying to see if we would come over and have dinner. Now we go over. But to abide, to occupy your house of plenty. I mean, it's to put a flag down. This is my home. This is where I live. To remain stable or in a fixed state. It goes on, it says to continue in a place or to sojourn. So that means this is perpetual. This is not just a sometimes, sometimes I'm thinking about supply. Sometimes I'm talking about abundance. Sometimes I'm thinking about there's more than enough. Sometimes I'm aware of that, and other times I'm not. No, occupy it. Abide in it. Remain stable and fixed in this state. This is that idea when we talking about supply, thinking about supply, and living supply with every thought. Take it over. Occupy your house of plenty. Hang up your clothes in the closets. Occupy your house of plenty. Sit down on the couch, kick your feet up, turn on the TV, see what's on Netflix. Occupy your house of plenty. Send your people your change of address card because you're living in the house of plenty now. Yes, yes? Occupy your house of plenty. The house exists. And there's a house that's available. There's enough space for each and every one of us. There's so much space and so much room. I won't see you in the house and you won't see me in the house. You feel like you're all alone because the house is it feels like it's yours. Occupy your house of plenty. With that, I invite everybody to stand. Ooh. There is a house. There is a house within our very mind, and it is a house of plenty. There is a house within our very mind, and it is a house of supply. There is a house within our very mind, it is a house of abundance. There is a house within our very mind, it is a house of more than enough. I go to that house right here and right now. I go to that house right here and right now. And as I breathe in and as I breathe out, I remember that there is one mind, one power, one presence, one good, one God that is back up, behind, and underneath all things. There is one life. It is my life now. It is your life right here and right now. And I am grateful and thankful to remember that it is so. And I recognize that it is this remembering, it is this knowing that is the foundation of my very being, and it is the authority from which I speak and I pray now. As I recognize that we have a house and there is a house of plenty, I abolish and destroy the drone thoughts of lack, loss, and limitation. Right here and right now, I remember that lack and limitation are an impossibility within nature. For everywhere I look on this planet and beyond, I see renewing and renewal. I see that the substance continues to become and transforms and becomes and transforms and becomes, because this is the very truth of life. Just as I recognize that a very teaspoon of this physical being that I possess is actually stardust, I'm recognizing that something that existed millions of years ago exists right here and right now, for this supply continues to change and transform and evolve and express in new and powerful and more meaningful ways. And so as I look to the truth that is in nature, that lack and limitation are an impossibility, I now declare and decree that within my life, lack and limitation are an impossibility. I scan in my mind every area of life, and I say there is supply. There is an infinite supply of love. There is supply. There is an infinite supply of answers. There is supply. There is an infinite supply of new ideas. There is supply. There is an infinite supply of new ways of thinking. There is supply. There are infinite ways of new ways of governing. There is supply. There are infinite ways, new ways of interacting. There is supply. There are infinite ways of thinking. There is supply. I put my mind and focus and attention and recognize that there is a supply. And I do that by focusing my demand in consciousness, not on things, but what I have in consciousness. For I recognize that there's an ebb and flow in the world of things, but there is a constant eternal nature in the world of the formless, in the world of mind, in the world of spirit. And so I go to that place that is formless. I go to that place where there is infinite possibility. I go to that place where every problem has been solved and resolved. I go to that place. I go to that place where there is already harmony and ways of interacting, but easily and effortlessly already exists. I go to that place. I go to that place where there are new ways of acting in the world. I go to that place where there are new mechanisms and new ways, new machines and new devices that support us in supporting the planet. I go to that place recognizing that there is an infinite supply. There's an infinite supply of ideas that allow us to love our planet. There's infinite supply of ideas that support us in using solar in ways we don't even understand right now. There's an infinite supply. There's an infinite supply of ideas that support us in using wind in ways that we do not understand now. There is an infinite supply. There's an infinite supply of ideas and engineering that exists in the mind of God that supports us in using water in a new and more powerful way as we shift and change the way that we interact with our planet, as we shift and change the way that we no longer heat up this planet. As we look at these ways, I recognize that I am hopeful and optimistic because I am looking at supply. I am hopeful and I am optimistic about the future because I recognize that there is supply. So it is with joy and thanksgiving that I release this prayer, this work of this thought. I rest in my consciousness that knows that there is abundance back of and behind and underneath all things. And so with joy and thanksgiving, we lift up our voices and we say amen. Amen. Ashe. Ashe. And so it is. So it is. Thank you, God.
Have a seat, everybody. I rest, I abide in supply. And rest is what you do with your consciousness, not what we're talking about your body. I rest, I abide in supply. Now, how many of y'all saying, yes, yes, Pastor Greg, yes, yes, supply, yes. And as soon as you walk out this door, your mind goes to the lack of supply. Supply didn't stop being. You stopped focusing on it. So this week as we go out, we're going to keep our mind, we're going to keep our consciousness on supply. Every time we see an example of supply, we're going to acknowledge it. That's the only way we begin to teach ourselves that supply exists. We keep our mind on it, and every time an example of an effect of a thought of supply shows up, we acknowledge it. We don't drone on and on about what's missing. Now, I know you get with your girlfriends and your guy friends, and you connect under the lack of. But this week, can y'all get together and connect under the abundance of?
Yes, yes.
Can y'all talk about the supply of good men, good life, good love, as opposed to, yeah, girl, you're right, there's not enough, da-da-da-da-da. Can you connect on the truth of life? Yes. Can you support each other under the truth of life?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Let's abide in supply and don't wait for heaven. Some far off kingdom that does not exist. The heaven that we're speaking of is the consciousness that we occupy. So you can be in heaven right now.
Yes.
Occupy your supply. Thank you, Pastor Greg.
In this moment, it is time for us to prepare for giving. And so as our ushers are preparing, if there's anyone, if you need an envelope or if you need a pen, please just raise your hand. Our ushers are happy to support you. So we have a few hands. If you would like to text to give and you need the number again, it is 347-744-9500. You can also go to our website to give easily and effortlessly from your smartphone, or you can visit one of the iPads at the host table. Thank you for those that choose to give online, support us in being as efficient as possible and saving trees. So I want to talk a little bit about money, and not maybe from the vantage point that you would think. I think it's important for us to understand what money is as we're talking about supply, and we just got finished talking about the law of supply. And while it is true, as I said, we don't want to limit supply to money. We must understand that money is an outpicturing of supply. And what does that mean? It means that money is an effect. And if all things are back of and behind abundance, law, or source, then money is in truth an effect of God, or as Raymond Charles Barker says, money is simply God in action. And so when we're considering how we're circulating our money, as we consider how we're circulating supply in this area of life, as we are circulating God in action, how we think about God then determines how we're thinking about money. If you wonder what's going on with your finances, you can look at your thoughts about God, and they probably mirror what's going on in your financial life. And so I think it's incredibly important that we shift and change our idea about what money is, recognizing that it absolutely is an effect of this thing that we call supply, and that is why we can have a consciousness of abundance behind it. So then that's what we use to inform how we choose in our giving. We recognize that as we're not going to put our thoughts on lack and limitation, we wouldn't choose a number that supports us in moving into lack and limitation. Yes, yes? We would choose a number that supports us in remembering, oh, there's more than enough. That's my number. Oh, there's a reason to be joyful in giving. That's my number. And so then when we do that and understand this, and we're going to keep talking about money a little more as the weeks go by, then we can affirm this truth. All the money that I use, returns to me multiplied, in a never-ending cycle of increase and enjoyment. With that, I call our ushers forward. Let's take a break.
Let us extend our hands, and through our hands, this energy, this life force, this ultimate supply. As we breathe in and breathe out, we remember that the supply is breathing us right here and right now. We are grateful today, Mother, Father God, for the givers and for the gifts, for we know that as we occupy this space, there is a supply behind it all. We allow that supply to fill every fiber of our being. We take that supply as we move out this week in our speech and in our action. We allow our mind to connect to the ultimate mind that knows that there is more than enough. From this place of awareness, we release these words knowing that they are so. And together we say, amen. Amen. Ashe. Ashe. So it is.
Let's affirm this together, y'all. I give my love. More love comes rushing back to me. I give my time. More time is available. I give my treasure, Lord, for me. As I give, I receive. It's all. Sunday is God Talk Sunday. This is the Sunday where we have a forum where you can hang out with PY and I. If you have questions, how do I apply these teachings to a specific thing that's going on in my life, or this stuff sounds good, but you don't know what's going on in my life. Whatever those questions are, questioning God, questioning your life, questioning spirituality, we're here to answer those questions and support you. At about 1:05, we're a little over time, so at 1:05 we'll get started.
And remember, if there's something that is still feels like it's heavy on you, leave your worries, your fears, and your doubts on the altar. And our prayer champion this week, Reverend Shauna, will pray over it all week. We do not beg, barter. If you do this, God, I'll do this. We don't beseech. Oh please, oh please, oh please, God. We don't do that. We affirm the truth. We know the truth. We know that there is supply and that we're connected to it. So if you need someone to hold whatever it is you've been holding so that you can release it, write it down and leave it on the altar in the back of the room. And when you do that, releasing it, what do we say?
All things are
now, all things are possible. Now everything is possible. 'Cause I know who I am, and I know whose I am.
Possible. I know who I am, and I know whose I am. I live inside. Now everything is possible. Why? Because we can remind you who we are. We can remind you who we are.
Here in the sanctuary, 1 o'clock.